VQ35 swap. We're on the dyno. A lot of changes have happened. I found an intake leak, so we fixed that. So I need to just go through and make sure that the wide open throttle tune is still good. And I'll touch up the street tune after. And then we have the flex fuel system hooked up. So once I make sure the gasoline's all set, we're gonna pump out the gas, put some ethanol in this thing and tune it again. The car's pretty much ready to leave me. We got everything's all set. We got lights, we got brakes, we got pumps, we got indicators, we got everything. The gauge cluster is all programmed and configured and everything. We got a GPS speedometer hooked up. It's pretty much ready to go other than an alignment, which will get done at some point. So I'm gonna go through and just verify the tune, and then we'll tune this thing on ethanol. And I figured since I didn't bring you guys along for the last tuning session, I'll bring you along for this one. So I'm gonna get everything set up, and then when I get the rollers rolling, we will start filming. So with the intake leak that we fixed, it's actually making a little bit more boost than I wanted to. So it's making 13.4 PSI, which would explain why it picked up some power, that pull, because it's more boost. Now, I am more comfortable on gasoline with this being around 300 wheel. So I'm gonna pull a little bit of duty cycle out of that. And then when we put it on ethanol, we'll put a little bit of boost in it. And we know, 14-ish is safe-ish on here. And this thing isn't going to be on ethanol all that often. But the rest of the tune looks great. Our corrections are pretty good, except for this spot right here. So I'm going to touch that up. Pull a little bit of boost out of it. And then do another pull. That'll verify that. So that pull ended up being, it was 319 horsepower. Now you can see that everything's dropping off, and that's just because of this turbo that we're running. It's just really, really small. What I'm gonna do is actually try to have the boost curve be a little bit more linear towards red line to try to get it to just creep the boost up, which will help the torque hold out. But yeah, the turbo we're running is just pretty small, so it's making peak horsepower at 5,500 RPM, which isn't great. So I'll play with the boost. I'll pull some out and then have it ramp up a little bit. You can actually see in the boost curve, that's the orange line right there, you can see the boost kind of drops off. We hit our full at what's that? At 5,500, we're making 13 PSI. And if we look at our boost control duty cycle, you can see I have it ramping. Try to get that torque to be a little smoother, and then I have it level off. So what I'll do is just drop that peak down a little bit and then just have it continue to ramp, and I'll just make the ramp a little bit smoother. I don't want a ton of low end torque in this thing. This thing picks up good as it is, and low end torque is what hurts engines, and this is a very high mileage engine, so we don't want that. So I'm just gonna play with that a little bit. We'll do another pull, and then we'll move on to ethanol. We had a little hiccup at about 5,000 RPM. It looks like it was in the RPM signal, which is weird. It still made too much boost, so I pulled even more out, but you can see the curve is a lot flatter. It's like the whole thing lost power. It's weird. Dip and everything. So I brought that down again. I also made it like a little bit more like that shape, so we can get this spike to kind of go away. So I can get this torque curve to flatten out, because it's still, falling off a little bit. I'd rather it be flat and not make as much torque down that low, so that we're not stressing the engine too much. Because the car still made a ton of horsepower. It still made 315, 314. So give this one more shot. All right, so we still had, you know, again, we're dealing with a small turbo here, so we still have like the little spike and it drops, but it's not as severe now. And I also have the boost holding flat, so it's not doing like a crazy like jump. So you can see right here, that tan-ish color, that's our boost. It's holding flat now, and it's nice and progressively coming on. That bluish line, that's the boost controller. So you can see, you know, I have it so that it kind of stops going up as steep, and it's holding the boost out flat, which is all I really want. I just don't want to get hit with a ton of boost and then falling off. If we can get it to do this, that's awesome. I could sit here and be really finicky and you know, really play with the curve, but it's not really necessary. It's also holding the power pretty flat, so it's making, you know, 305 to 307 from 55 all the way up to red line. So that's pretty good. Fuel's in where it's supposed to be. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get the gasoline out of this thing and put it on ethanol and see what it will do. All right, so I have this hose here with a -6 fitting on it. I'm just going to take off that fitting, put it on there, and then I get a pump 93 can, just dump what we can. Car's at an angle, which means we're not going to get everything out of it. So what I'm going to do is, instead of just putting in I have a can of E70. Instead of just putting that in, I'm going to put in a gallon of E98 or X98, they call it, from VP, so that we can really get whatever gasoline in there is up a little bit. And then we'll push the E70 in there and see what we end up with. Not really that important that we get to E85, because he's pretty much going to be getting his stuff out of a pump, and around here we don't get 85 out of our pumps. E70 is what you're kind of lucky to get. But you know, if he wants to spend the extra money on me dumping in a $70 worth of X98 to get the ethanol content up really high, I'll do it, but it's not completely necessary. So I'm gonna go ahead and empty this out, and then we'll see what happens. Make sure I don't fill the can up all the way. So we're just getting 65%. So I'm gonna get a can of another can of 98 and pour it in there to get that up to, you know, 70, 80 is what it is. Right, so we got to E73 and it is still going up a little bit. So as I run the car, it'll probably go up. Let's see if it starts. Okay, so it started. We're running a little rough. So we're a little rich. It's adjusting right now. All right, I'm gonna dial in the idle on it. We'll go from there. All right, it's idling high, but that's because I have the idle control on just open loop. So it's just idling a little high from that. I'll play with that afterward. But we got, it's adding 3% of fuel that kind of wiggles around a little bit, so I'm okay with that. So now we're gonna do a pull, and we're gonna see what it does, I guess. We're at a 74% ethanol now. So to be expected, the boost came on a bit sooner and we were a little rich. It started breaking up at 4,000 RPM, which was already at 10 pounds of boost. So what I'm gonna do is pull the plugs out and I'm gonna gap them down a little bit, because I think that might be the issue. I didn't go really aggressive on the gap just because we weren't gonna run much boost. But apparently I need to gap them down a little bit. So I'm gonna pull the plugs, gap them down, and then we'll do another run. I think we found our problem. Can you tell which one has a bad coil pack? Can you? And if I look at the coil pack, she's a little melted. So that would be an issue. So that sucks. So we might have been making only 5 cylinders worth of power this whole time. All right, so I'm gonna change that coil pack out. Still gonna gap down the plugs, but that's gotta get swapped out. Yeah, the car's even idling smoother. So I'm wondering how long that coil pack was skipping. So the tune isn't off, so that's good. So now we're gonna try doing that pull again and see what it does. The phone didn't record. It just made 420 horsepower. Holy crap! The phone didn't record. Just too focused on, the car. Holy crap! Okay, gonna look that log over. That coil pack definitely was hurting us. The car made 16 pounds of boost, which is a little more than I want. Jesus Christ, it was piling in fuel. Wow, that was wild. And I let out of it because it was on a tear. I mean, I made 420 horsepower. I really wish I had that on video. That thing was hauling. You can see it laid over really hard though, because the turbo's just, that's more power than the turbo was rated for. Jesus Christ. Okay, so I'm gonna go through and fix this, make it make less power. And then we'll do another pull. But oh my god. All right, so we turned it down a little bit, like the boost. I made it so that on this ethanol content, it was at like 20% increase, so I brought it down to 13. So we'll see what that does. So we'll do another pull and see what it does. So it made like a pound less boost, but it picked up power. 431 horsepower. And it cut out at 6,000 RPM. I'm getting this code. Throttle 1, relaxed sensor mismatch settings. I'm looking that up. God damn. That's like nuts. I can't believe I have to pull it back. It's making more power than I want. So I'll pull some more boost out of it, and it needs a little bit of fuel adjustment. Calling me perplexed. I watched the boost during that pull, and that was only 14.6 psi, so that's 1 pound less than the last pull, and we picked up 10 horsepower. Now I put a degree of timing in it to compensate for the pull of boost, but I didn't think a degree of timing would add that much horsepower. I mean, the car is taking it, it's not having any problems. It's rolling over. Once you get over 6,000 RPM, again, that's turbo size, but that's not a lot of boost, like at all. So I'm thinking I'm gonna leave it. Again, this thing won't see this ethanol content probably ever again in its entire life, which right now we are at 73% ethanol, which, like I said before, getting that out of a pump is like next to impossible. But you can see the boost keeps going and going. I have it at a climbing rate so it doesn't slam on all at once. Put our duty cycle here. You can see I have that. Just trying to get it to hang up. We're still having that cutout at like 6,500 RPM, but I think that might be a limiter of some kind. I'm gonna look into that. But I mean, you're not gonna rev it out that high when you're making that much power and it starts rolling over at 6,000 RPM. But I'm thinking that's where this is gonna stay. And call that a success. It needs a touch more fuel. I mean, I'm curious to see what it would make on the same boost as gasoline that's doing 300. But, you know, it's 3 pounds more than the gasoline one, 4 pounds more. And I think we're gonna leave it like that. That's nuts. Like, Jesus. Color me impressed. I love ethanol. That's what, 120 horsepower more than gasoline on what, 3-4 pounds more boost? Oh my God, and that's way over what that turbo is rated for. Now the ratings are usually done like CFM gasoline, but that little itty bitty turbo making 438 wheel horsepower in this heat with it was like 110 degree intake air temps by the end of the pull because itty bitty intercooler. Holy crap. Well, drive it around, getting alignment done, and this thing is gonna be heading out of here. The interior, I'm gonna clean up a little bit more of the wiring, but the interior is getting put back together by the owner. The engine bay, I got just a couple cleanup things I gotta do, and that's done. The hood and bumper we're gonna throw on it on Monday, I think, or Tuesday. But I'm gonna be taking it on a nice long ride on Tuesday. And, you know, assuming there's no issues, it's leaving, so it's pretty much done. And a hell of a project, but I am really happy with how that turned out. E70, 438 horsepower at 14, 15 pounds of boost. That's mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was getting a little squirrely there on the dyno. And the straps are tight, so she was scooting and booting. That turbo spools up really goddamn fast and hard. So we'll do a built engine at some point, a bigger turbo, and this thing will eat. So, sweet.